Hola, ¿cómo estás? Trabajé en América Latina por 2 años, pero de los Estados Unidos. Ah, pero hablo español muy, muy mal. Mal, 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 mal. So I hope you don't mind if I speak in English. I think that's, probably less painful for you guys more than me. So thank you very much for coming. It's a Saturday morning. I know it's difficult. So I commend your commitment and interest. So I'll try to do the best for the hour of the time that we have. So one of the things that I wanted to do is, as you're standing there going, all right, who is this jet-lagged guy standing on stage here? What is he? Why am I listening to him? First, let me clear something up. If you look in the program, you'll see this guy. So have you ever heard of security by obscurity? Have you ever heard that phrase? So I'm trying not to let the NSA know that I'm here, but actually I'm this guy. So hopefully that will clear up any confusion. So a good part of my job is I get to travel the world. I'm very interested in meeting different people and especially eating different food. So what I thought I would do, geez, before I forget, you can tell I practiced this, right? So what we're going to do is there's going to be a Q&A session, but because we are in the modern world of the interweb, which is not really a series of connected tubes, what I'll be doing is if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A period at the end, but feel free to tweet to me here, and what I'll do is check my phone from time to time. So if you have questions, feel free to tweet them at me. So first of all, so this is where I'm from. If you notice the circle there, there's an A in the middle. I will buy you a beer if you can properly pronounce the name of my city. Most Americans cannot say the name of the city, but it's Worcester. It's nothing like it's spelled. So Worcester, Massachusetts. So we're kind of near New York and Boston. This is what it looks like, what we want people to think it looks like. Now, of course, this time of year, it gets a little cold. That's my house last winter. So I was walking here from the hotel and seeing people all bundled up, gloves and hats. Yeah, right. So anyways, now there's something else that I want to help you understand here. So language, so you heard how bad my Spanish is. So in America, the part of the country I live in, we kind of have our own alphabet here. And if you notice, when we get between the Q and the S, that letter is a little different. We pronounce it as an A, not an R, an A. So we're going to try something here, a little cultural exchange. So I want you to try a phrase. So if I'm Mark, going to go park my car somewhere, that's fine. For when I lived in California, Mark parks his car. But I want you to all try this. This is how we say it in Worcester. Okay, can you guys, on the count of 3, Mark parked his car. All right? 1, 2, 3. That was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm gonna talk about a couple different things. So again, kind of why I'm here and the point that will get at eventually. When I was 19, this is me. At this point, I knew nothing about computers. Actually, literally, I had a job. I couldn't understand. I was working on one computer, and I went to another, and I couldn't find my file. And I didn't understand why. And they said, well, it's on the hard disk. And I said, it's right here. And they said, no, that's a floppy disk. I'm like, but you said it was on the disk. And they said, yeah, it's on the hard disk. I'm like, but it's here. And they said, no, that's a hard disk. So I went from, so how does this guy become this guy? So a couple weeks ago, my colleague, Dr. Stefan Luters at CERN, was kind enough to give my fiance and I a private tour of CERN. So how does long-haired metal guy end up getting allowed even on the property, let alone get a tour? But I'm going to talk about that. It has a lot to do with mentorship. Now, I do have a day job. You guys may have heard of this place. So I am at CISCO. And a lot of what my job is about is discussing how to protect things like this. So my focus is predominantly on industrial control systems, or the Internet of Things, if you will, and how to protect those. It's becoming more and more of an issue. And when you look at it, let me ask you this. How many people here are familiar with Shodan? All right, we got a couple people. Okay, so just for those who aren't aware of it, Shodan is a search engine that helps you find devices. So Google helps you find data, Shodan helps you find devices. And now what we're finding is, with industrial control systems, these things were built to last decades. But think of how much technology changes over decades. I had this great picture. Man, I wish I thought of it now. When I was at CERN, there was a platter this big. It was a 10 megabyte hard drive compared to my iPhone, which is 64 gig. So things progress, but this world hasn't so much. And so what John's done with John Matherly, who started Shodan, this is an idea of some of the devices that he's found. He'll do these, like a census on different devices. So you think, do we have any coders here, any developers? Okay, any of you guys work on Metasploit, for example, right? Okay. So one of the things that I've seen over the years, for sure, is it used to be when, all right, for example, anyone remember the love letter virus? You guys ever hear that? Okay. So the rest of you have to look it up in a history book. But I was working for an office supply company. We had 55,000 users in our email address list. Love letter comes out. It hits everybody in the global address book. We were down for 3 days. It was a pain, but it wasn't the end of the world. What we've seen is the progression of the ability to somebody, now you may be writing from Metasploit, but it doesn't take necessarily a ton of skill to use it. So number one, we've seen a lowering in the bar of what it takes to do damage. Now you have malware that has a 1-800 or a toll-free support number. Hi, I'm trying to break into this bank and I can't get this module to work. Oh, this is what you do. Combine that now with something like this, where now all I have to do is put in a search for a certain type of device, a certain version, and you get an idea of the immensity of the problem. And just these two gentlemen, by the way, will be talking about this here, gentlemen. So I suggest attending their session. But now one of the things is, now add another complicating factor. CISCO, whom I work for, estimates that over the next 5 years, we will need 1 million more skilled cybersecurity professionals. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's actually even gotten to the point where sometimes I just think about it, I'm like, man, I am disconnecting the phone. I'm only going to burn firewood. I'm going to go hunt my own food. A little overdone, but that's what we're looking at. So, I mean, that's why a lot of us are here. And so where I talk about this a lot of people want to get into, Stuxnet or talk about Havex. And then what do we have now is Regan. I mean, that's more financial services. They want to talk about that. But the thing that I find is there has to be an approach. I think there's something very fundamental that's missing in that we need to address. We can't continue down the same road and expect different results. I don't know if you've ever heard the definition of insane or the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think we've kind of gotten to that point within cybersecurity. So I sat around and I thought about it, and I'd run around and say, look, cybersecurity shouldn't be something that we wait for students to get to college and maybe choose it. This is something that should be taught right from the very beginning of school. It should be part of everything. I mean, we teach kids not to take candy from strangers, not to get in a stranger's car. Why can't we teach them right from the very beginning about how not to give away passwords, what to do in anonymous chat rooms or not to go to them, things like that. So, I came up with this really eloquent speech, and I thought I would go down to my school board and demand that this be taught. But the reality of the matter is where I live, like a lot of other cities, we're challenged for funds. We don't have the money. Our schools are trying to do the most basic things. So I decided to do something about it. So I created this event called Interrupt. So the name, actually my buddy came up with the name, but it's for, the name has two purposes. First of all, if you think of a processor, interrupts are going to it. So we've got the technology angle, but it's to shake up the thinking. And so our idea here is to go to students, get them interested in cybersecurity so they choose careers. Because, you know, quite honestly, we need the help. We need you guys. We need your younger brothers and sisters. You know, when you look at it, I go to a lot of these events, and you may not know it, but I'm 45. Often I'm like the average age. Sometimes I'm the young guy. And while that might make me feel a little better about myself, for for cybersecurity, that's not a good thing. You know, we need fresh blood. So that's where we came in with this. And so the idea is not so much to, again, teach deep technical. We try to get the kids fired up enough to go pursue. So there are three things that we try to touch on here. It's, as you see, creativity, community, and meritocracy. So I want to talk about those a little bit. So creativity. Any musicians here? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. One of us. Well, I know you are. Okay, good. What about like artists, painters, sculptors? Nada. Okay. I'll end it there. My thought here and why I'm talking about creativity is, again, I think it actually goes to the hacker mindset. Is, you sit there and you go, what if? What if I change this? What if I do that? What if these two things come together? And that's what we're looking at. And again, it goes to my argument of, the problems aren't going to solve themselves. We can't keep using the same methods. So one of the things we're trying to do is create an environment where you can come in and go, what if? What if I try this differently? And I think, something that I'd like to do too is take back the word hack. By a show of hands, well, actually in this crowd, I think I know where this is going. Who would say hacking is good? Okay. All right. So who says hacking is bad? All right. So in my opinion, it's neither. It's what you do with it. It's that mindset. And there's a story I tell about somebody who's not really named Dave. And when I told him about this event, I said, he got all excited about it. And we started having this conversation. And finally, he was talking really technical. And finally I looked at him, I said, dude, I thought you were a chef. And he's like, well, yeah, about that. I am. Long story short, it's because he's not allowed to work with computers anymore. So when he was 16, he was a energetic and curious young man, but channeled it in the wrong way. He spent 3 days and nights breaking into a federal database, succeeded, and then got caught. So that, I think, is hacking used for ill purposes. But I also think hacking is used for positive. And I want to take that word back. I don't want hack to be related with only negative. It's what we do with it. So, community. How many people here are familiar with Snort? Okay, we got one. Open source intrusion prevention. So, Marty Resch wrote Snort, then eventually founded a company called SourceFire, which was a commercial version of it. That's who I went to work for 2 years ago. And then it was acquired by CISCO for $2.7 billion. So well done, Marty. But we still use that open source base. And I wasn't really so much of an open source guy till I went to work there. And what I realized in working there is, I am a capitalist, I guess, if you can say that in a nice way. I believe in individuals succeeding and doing well for what they do, but by the same token, I'm a firm believer in that community and giving back to the community. So when you write to something open source, it benefits everybody. Actually, we have competitors who use our open source code base to compete against us. And it's funny sometimes when you get into a situation when you realize who you're competing against, and they're using our technology against us. But we're not pulling it back. It's still there because the community needs it, the community uses it. We see it a lot in industrial control systems where they use our stuff. But I think this idea of giving back, so this is what we focus on. So one of the things that we do in our next event, so we're going to have a Wi-Fi capture the flag, treasure hunt. So basically what we're doing is taking a bunch of Raspberry Pis, creating networks, and the kids have to break into them. But what we're looking to do is create that image and then make it freely available to the public. Because not everybody has the resources and the ability to go and do this on their own. But by giving back into the community, it's our firm belief that it strengthens it for everybody. And I guess the last point that I want to make here too is we see this as a case for economic development. Again, the city that I live in is, we don't have a lot of money. You should see the roads. I think we have some of the worst roads in all of Massachusetts, if not that region of the country. Things just don't get fixed all the time. So, this idea that, okay, so, you take a couple that you meet here and you get together and you have an idea and it does well. And then maybe you can hire some more people. And guess what? Those people go to lunch. Those people may want apartments near there. So you see a way that this can turn into an economic development opportunity. So, meritocracy. One of the things that we do is this event is completely free. It's paid for through sponsorship money because I'm a firm believer in ideas. That he or she with the best idea wins, or at least gets the most credit. What I love about technology and why I encourage students to get involved and to learn is because it's a great leveler. Technology is a great leveler. It doesn't matter what your physical capabilities are. It doesn't really matter where you live. It doesn't really matter what your background is. It's all about the thoughts and capabilities that you have. So seeing that come in, and again, I think that feeds back into community. So what we want to see are those strong ideas, and I don't care about anything else. I don't care, when we do this, I don't want some kid who doesn't have the money. We say, oh, great, come learn this stuff. It's going to cost you this much. We don't do that, because I want those ideas, and I don't care if the kids comes from a billionaire family or a poor family. We want ideas, and by having that, I think it strengthens the community for everybody. Okay, so a couple challenges here that I have for, first, the students amongst us. Don't accept no for an answer. I was sitting there thinking about this last night, and I didn't want to get preachy and say, do this, do that. I like to leave it open-ended. So I was actually walking back to my hotel last night. I'd get every 5 feet. I'm like, oh, I got to write this down. Oh, I got to write that down. So these are some of the things I was thinking about last night. But don't take no for an answer. I think the majority of people do. And I think what's needed is a strong sense of self. If you believe you have a good idea, don't let anybody ever tell you no. And if somebody tells you no, go to the next person and go to the next person. Because I'm going to try to think of a non-cynical way to say this. There are far more not brilliant people than there are brilliant people. And the more brilliant your idea is, the less people will understand what your idea is or why it's good, which is why don't take no for an answer. I do think it's important to have a team of people to give you input. But if you believe it, you look at, okay. Who here has ever had Hershey's chocolate? Really? Nobody? Actually, you guys have way better chocolate than we do in the United States. So actually, you know what? I'm glad. But that totally ruins the whole story. Anyways, Hershey, went bankrupt something like 5 times. But he knew he was onto this thing. He was going to do something different, and he just kept going. So I always think, too, there's like a thin line between crazy and motivated. I guess maybe if he continued to fail, he would have just been called crazy. But don't ever take no for an answer. Far too many people do. Diversify your interests. In my office, so I've got my desk, which is actually a combination producer's workstation. So I actually have a mixing board on one side, and then I got my computer on the other. And behind me, I have an electronic drum kit. And it's great for when you get off a phone call where you're really, really annoyed. Just pounding things with wooden sticks is an awesome, awesome release. But it also, I had, we had our first event in Atlanta a few months ago, and a student came up to me afterward and asked me. She really, really wanted to get into cybersecurity, but she was also interested in writing. Not about technical stuff. And she was so concerned that she was going to have to give up writing if she really throw everything into it. And I was like, oh no, God no, please don't do that. Sometimes when you can just go and unplug and get away from something, especially if it's non-technical, I think it's a great asset because you'll look at things in a new way. And one of the epiphanies that I've had is, so my fiance is an artist. She's a graphic designer. So all of our friends are artists and musicians, which, makes for interesting times if you ever hang out with artists. But, you realize from a security perspective, we have a tendency to look within ourselves. What's good code, what's good engineering, and forget sometimes that there's a public out there, that we actually need to design for. So that's something, I won't get into it now, that I work on is working design into it because somebody's going to consume this eventually, but that's a whole other story. Take the initiative. Don't wait for problems to be solved. Don't wait for somebody else to do something for you because you know what? Most other people are waiting. So if there's something you don't like, something you want to change, something you can improve, go do it. And refer back to don't take no for an answer. So I think we've got an older crowd than I normally, and I mean older as in more mature, crowd than I normally talk to. So who here's on Twitter? Okay, most of you. All right, so here's challenge number one. Okay. This weekend, so it's Saturday. By the end of tomorrow, find 10 new people to follow on Twitter. And if you retweet something, try to add comments to it. Some people you follow, just retweet. They don't add anything to the conversation. When you do, make sure you give credit. If you like something that somebody had to say, give them credit for it. And every now and then you'll see different hour-long chat sessions on Twitter. Participate. And the reason I say this is it's very, very key to build your network. The more you're seen as contributing into the community, the more ground you'll gain. Now, who's on LinkedIn? Okay, it's a good amount. If you're not, create yourself a profile. What else did I write on here? Join some of the groups that are there and again, contribute. But also, too, I challenge you to connect with 10 people from this event. If you want to make me number one, go ahead. And the reason I say this is one of the Interrupt events that we had, one of the advice given, this woman from Akamai told the students there, be fearless in asking questions. Go to the people that you want to talk to, that you want to learn from. If you hear somebody talking about something, go to them and ask them about it. When I started this event, it was amazing, the people from the hacker community, when I would just tweet them or send them a message and say, hey, can I have your advice? And oddly enough, they'd say yes. Now, people that I probably would never get to talk to in my day job, I just hit them up. And you wouldn't believe, this is a very, very giving community. I've been very moved by that. So please, connect, get out there. I look at this as we're all peers here. So, to my colleagues, one thing, and I think for everybody here, you never know who you're going to reach. And I want to give two personal use cases. So this is how Rocker Dude became this guy. Whether you think that's a bonus or not, I don't know. That's your call. But I want to give two use cases. So last name is pronounced Shada. You'd never know it. Anyways, Robert was one of my good friends' dad. And he owned a motor shop, and you wouldn't think of him as a techie. But Robert used to build his own computers. So when I was that long-haired guy, I would go over the house. So one of the things that was great, these guys were like my adopted family. So I was literally a starving musician, and I'd go over, Mom would slip, $10, $20, she'd give me a hug, and all of a sudden I'd find money in my pocket or something, or, food. But Robert would show me his computers. And so here I am, so imagine this. I'm a music school dropout. with no skills. I've got a baby on the way. I'm broke. And one day Robert looks at me and says, all right, we're going to the electronics store. So we go, and I build my first computer. And to give you an idea of how long ago, it was a, 386 SX chip, I think it was. But I built my first computer. So the guy that didn't know the difference between a hard drive and a floppy drive all of a sudden goes, that's it? This is like Legos. So from that point on, I got to say, Robert is the whole reason I'm here. That changed my life forever. It went a completely different course. Neither of us knew it at the time, of course, but having Robert as a mentor had that direct effect. I would not be here today if it weren't for this man. In an indirect sense, I want to talk about one last person. So her name is Sabine Mahmood, and she has no idea who I am. Actually, I've tweeted to her a couple times, so if she does know me, she might know me as maybe she thinks I'm a stalker or something, I don't know. But when I was going through this idea of, what do I do about this cybersecurity issue? What do I do about this education issue? And trying to figure out what it was, I knew I needed to do something. I read an article about her in Wired magazine. She is the first woman, actually first person, to establish a hackathon in Pakistan. And they talked about the challenges that she went through, the effort that she put in, and the results that she was getting. So here's this guy on the other side of the planet. She has no idea who I am, yet this is the reason, she is the reason that I finally got motivated enough to start this event, to start reaching out to kids, to try to get them into this field. So my point here is, you never know who your actions are going to affect. You never know who sees what you do. And I think what's important to understand sometimes too, that people around you may not understand what you're doing or trying to do. But there is somebody somewhere. So think about that. You never know what that impact could be. So with that, again, if you have any questions, I'll check here. We don't have a microphone. So if you have any questions, feel free to either tweet them at me now, tweet them at me later. If you have anything now, I think that's it. I don't even know what time it is, so I don't know if we finished early or late, but thank you very much. Wow, I went really fast. Sorry, that's what happens when you take a Bostonian and give him coffee. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Oh, and there's a microphone right there.
I don't know much about this question of the industrial security, but I would like to ask you something, because recently I read something in connection with the possibility to split the internet into different subnets in order to improve security. So this was seen as a risk for the internet. I think that almost everybody thinks that the internet should be one unique entity. And well, one of our values is the integration, connection, and so on. But when I have to think about the possibility of someone in his house hacking, not only video games, but maybe a nuclear plant, then this idea of everything connected all over the world doesn't sound so right, so good. So I would like to know from you that have access to some important people in Cisco and some important networking companies, what is the idea about this possibility to split the internet into different sub-networks in order to improve security? I am thinking about the possibility to isolate industrial systems, things that has to be with aerospace, planes, and so on. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you for the question. Actually, I have not heard that idea thrown out before. I'm going to try to give you my opinion in a very polite way, because I do have an opinion. I don't think that, I would disagree with taking that approach. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, all right, if you split the internet into subnets, who's your network administrator? Who owns that part of it? All right, you volunteer? Oh, sorry. Do you have a follow-up? Oh no. Okay. So no, I hadn't heard that. I mean, I think some people tried to gain headlines with trying to come out with very basic resolutions or very basic ideas. If we just do this, everything will be great. There was former CIA director had the idea that we should put all electric transformers on the grid inside a Faraday cage. You guys familiar with what a Faraday cage is? So it keeps out electromagnetic energy, I guess. So if you explode a nuclear warhead, so his concern was, if North Korea sends a nuclear warhead over and explodes it in the air, there'll be this electromagnetic pulse that'll fry all the substations. So we should put Faraday cages around all of them. What? That's insane. Because you got to think about it, anything that would use electricity anyways that's not in a Faraday cage would get fried. So who cares if the grid's running? So I think that idea of splitting it up, I don't know that that's the best approach. I think it's a problem that has to be addressed at many different levels. I mean, even just one example, and I forgot to give it earlier, on that Shodan search in January, I was at a conference. You had a bunch of researchers talk, and they were all laughing, and what they were talking about was somebody had misconfigured a satellite network and thereby connected it to the internet. And they were using all default passwords. So a simple Shodan search, somebody came across and went, oh my God, I can get into this satellite. And so then from that point, they went in, and luckily this was a white hat, and they contacted the company and it was taken care of. So even if you try to break it into subnets, I don't think that's going to do much of anything, because people make mistakes. We all do it. I have what I call my day one mistake. Just about every IT job I started, within the first 2 days I broke something. You make a mistake. My very first day in IT, I was supposed to eject a tape, and I looked down and I mistook the power button for the tape eject button. Boom! All the lights went out. And it was a software development company, and the server was called Dev1. So, oops. But anyways, so that's my long-winded way of saying I hadn't heard that, but I don't think that's the approach that I would take. So. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to know your opinion about the Internet of Things, focus over cybersecurity.
Oh, if what I do in the Internet of Things is on cybersecurity?
What?
I'm just trying to understand the question. So are you asking if I work in cybersecurity in...
No. We are going to the Internet of Things.
Yes.
We want to have Internet everywhere. So what's your opinion about our privacy, our security in that Internet of Things?
Sure. God, I love these questions. And it's like I'm trying so hard. If we were sitting down over a beer right now, I'd be a little more free-flowing in my thoughts. I'm really trying to censor this because I also know this is being webcast. Yeah. So, all right, so the Internet of Things is coming, whether we want to stop it or not. You have these conversations in the security world. Oh, we need to take this approach and that. No. The way it always happens is somebody has an idea, and the idea goes like that, and then all the security people are going, wait, stop. We never get a chance to go, wait, let's put on some security here. I think, more than ever, and this is, I guess, another reason why I started the event, is I think we're all responsible for protecting our own privacy. And we really need to think long and hard about how we go about doing that. And the unfortunate thing is most people don't understand or know how. But you get another complicating factor in that, back when we still used phones at home, I was very vigilant about not letting my phone number get out, not letting my address get out. And one day my sister was in California, she calls me up, she goes, hey, I just Googled your name, and the first thing that came up is your phone number and address. What do you mean? So what had happened was, I went to a meeting at City Hall to give my opinion on school budgets, and you have to give your name and address. And then, because it's the government, those are all public records. So they just went, oh, Marck Blamer came to talk about this, here's where he lives, and here's his phone number. So I think our privacy is in jeopardy. I think our, and I'm sorry, it should be all rainbows and unicorns, but no, but I think we have to be honest about it and be very, very vigilant, and then, over a couple of beers, maybe I'll get even more honest. All right. Any other questions? I like this part. I hate presentations. I got to admit, I hate presentations. I much rather prefer conversations. Oh, yes, sir. So we can get that gentleman a microphone, please.
Hello. Okay. I would like to ask to you are there any certifications about Ciberseguridad Industrial, about CISCO?
Well, CISCO has a lot of certifications. I don't know if, that's a good question. I don't know if we have one specifically on security. It's probably a part of some of the other, we're more, have a tendency to be more network focused. You do have things like that ISC squared does the CISSP, so that's available. Actually, the gentlemen that were there that in the back, Samuel and Nacho, are working on developing a program for certification for security in industrial control systems. So there are a few that are out there now. SANS Institution does a few. And then what I'll do is, if you remind me, I'll give you my card. And then if you want to know about CISCO specifically, I'll look it up for you. And then I'll give you an answer. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Not one? A little bit? All right. If you don't have any other questions, I'll be hanging out, so feel free to ask me any questions or, oh, we got one more coming. Cool. I like this part.
Yes, hello, morning, sir.
Good morning.
I would like to know your point of view about the insurance market. Is it really prepared to offer good solutions to the cyber risk?
I love that. I love that topic. All right, so asking about insurance. So you're talking about breach insurance and that sort of thing. Yes, I do have opinions. I have lots of opinions. I think there are positives and negatives to it. The positive end, I think, to cybersecurity insurance is it's going to force companies to improve their security. In the U.S., at least, I'll give an example. They call it commercial reasonableness, which I think is just a word that lawyers made up. But I'll give you an example. So there was a bank in the state of Maine that was breached, and there was a company that lost a few $100,000, construction company. They sued the bank. Bank said no. Judge found the bank liable because even though there was no regulation for that bank to have a certain level, they were not up to the same level as their peers. So the idea was, hey, yeah, there's no standard, but your peers are better secured, therefore you should be, therefore you are liable. So what I see from insurance is an insurance company is going to say, oh, no, we're not taking on this risk till you improve these things. So from that perspective, I see benefit. The downside of it is, and it's going to depend on each case, the downside is, some chief information security officer going, oh, no, I don't need to improve my security, I have insurance. And then they take that as a pass not to do what they need to do. So again, I think it's going to depend on the use case, but those are the two sides of the coin that I see. Are you in the insurance industry? Oh, we should talk. I'd like to talk more about that. Fantastic, thank you. Okay. Any more? ¿Más preguntas? ¿Sí? ¿No?
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
I want to know what kind of situation do you have in some industrial customer, and how your solution or the CISCO solution could protect them? Because I know that usually this kind of customer have intrusion in their system. So the IPS, the intrusion prevention system, is essential to prevent this kind of attack. So sometimes you need some signatures to protect the industrial control system protocol or some kind of things. I want to know more about that, if you could explain.
Yeah, sure. Oh, happy to. Yeah, so first, just for everybody's understanding, if you're not familiar with industrial control systems or ICS, you have, let's take a power utility. You have two sides of the house. You have IT, which we normally think of, and then typically on the industrial side or the control side, we have Can you hear me? Oh, geez. All right. Now I can't run around. So what I was going to say is you have two sides of the house, IT and then OT in the control system side. And number one, actually, even before you get to the technology, is you're dealing with a culture. So what you have to understand is in IT, if we see an attack happen, the idea is I'm going to cut that system off, and I'm going to contain it. I'm going to contain the breach. The problem is when we get into the industrial side, is that take the utility. If I take the wrong system offline, the lights literally go out. So the approach to OT, number one, even before we get to the technical, is understanding what their mindset is. So number one, it's safety. Number two, it's service delivery. So they won't allow anything in that interferes with that. So now to get to your point, I think it's actually even using IPS, intrusion prevention. A lot of times if you're talking to somebody in OT, they don't want that. They want intrusion detection. So difference being, for those who aren't familiar, an IPS will go and take action. An IDS will go, hey, there's something happening over here. So what we try to do when we talk to our customers, number one, is let them know that we understand that we're not just going to go in and, kick in the doors and, we have to be passive more often than not, and let those systems do what they're going to do. But there's a lot more to it than just an IPS, or an IDS. That's a good place to start, but of course you get into that hole, you've got to have defense in depth. So, bad guys can get in one way or another, or even if you think of like my day one situations that I talk about, I was talking to one of our engineers, they work with an oil company. So they were talking to a guy in the security control center and who was monitoring an oil rig. And one of the engineers out there, not an IT guy or anything, he's got a USB stick. He's trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do, upgrade firmware or whatever, and they're watching him on the camera and they can't say anything. And he keeps walking over to these devices, plugging in this USB stick. So at this point in cybersecurity, USB equals bad. And they're just watching this guy, and they're going, oh my God, how much malware did you just put in the network? Because he's just going around trying to find somewhere to put the USB stick. So, so we approach it from, hey, it can be an insider who makes a mistake. It can be an outsider who does something. We need to look at different angles. And one of the things that we try to do too is we try to look at things based on time. I think one of the shifts in, when I started in IT, you had to keep everything out. It's not realistic. Things get in. So we've changed a lot more too to going, okay, here's your, here's how we're going to protect you up front. But we also focus a lot too on what happens when something's in and how do we learn after something gets in to not let the next thing in. So that's, I think, another thing that we approach with these guys, going, look, things are bound to get in. So we look at it based on time, not just technology. So does that answer your question?
Correction. You say that you love test food from different countries. What do you think about the Spanish food? Just
Oh, man. I love it. There's a place that, so this is my third time in Spain. My third time in Madrid. There's a place called La Madera, I think is what it is. So I'm a huge Anthony Bourdain fan. I don't know if you watch Bourdain at all. So usually what I do when I go to a city is I look up the episode where he's gone. And I think Le Cabrera. That's where it is. Man, the food is good there. So yes, I love Spanish food. We have a place at home that tries to be an authentic tapas restaurant. I give them credit. They try, but Yeah, the unfortunate thing is I can't bring jamon on the plane. So I just eat as much as I can while I'm here. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Spanish wine. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll answer questions about food and wine too if you want to talk about that. It's a little more interesting. All right. Do we get it? All right. Let me check. I didn't check the inner tubes. Let me see. Do we have any questions online? No, I just opened the Wall Street Journal. Oh, I was asked to do this. Hold on. Because my family couldn't, it was very early. It's a 6-hour time difference. So they wanted to see a picture of everybody here. So can I take your picture? Can I do that? Can we bring up the lights a little bit? All right. All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, man, your eyes were closed. You want me to do another one? All right, okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm here today and tomorrow, so feel free to grab me if you have any questions or want to talk about wine. Thank you.